You are a powerlifter, you're a sports coach, you're a sports nutritionist. Your whole world revolves around exercise. But talk to me about that. How did you discover powerlifting? What was the motivator?
Um, I am just like freakishly strong, really. It was by accident. I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life. Like I started with gymnastics when I was 4 years old, and I loved every sport. Like I wanted to be the best. And as I grew older, like became an adult, I joined the military. I was in the army for 10 years. And when I got out, I just like lost the sense of community. I wasn't as active as I used to be, and I was getting very, very depressed. So I actually had a fellow veteran friend that like physically dragged me out of my home and got me into the gym. It initially started with CrossFit because, like, being from a gymnastics background, it just made sense. And then I had a friend that was also a powerlifter and a powerlifting coach that had started following me on social media and was like, you're way too strong for CrossFit. You should try this powerlifting thing. And I was like, that's super dumb because, like, I was a victim of like high school powerlifting when I was a kid and like got thrown in a weight room, was like, okay, lift that. And I'm like, no. So I was like, powerlifting is really boring. I don't want to do that. But then he's like, no, we're going to go to the Arnold. So we went to the Arnold, I think it was 2018. And he took me to the XPC event that was there. And I fell in love. And so from there, he got me connected with a local team. And I did my first meet in September of 2019. And the rest is history. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what are some of the lifts? What are some of your impressive lifts? Because I've seen your Instagram, some of your back squats and your deadlifts. Fucking incredible. What are your PBs?
Thank you. So in comp, my best squat is 240. My best, and that's at 75 kilogram body weight.
Yep.
My best bench in comp is 122 and a half. And then my best deadlift in comp is 252 and a half
And is this kilos or pounds?
kilos.
Kilograms. Wow, that's impressive. That's incredible. And sorry, you said you're 75 kilogram body weight?
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. So what are some of the skills that you've learnt in powerlifting? How does someone get strong like that?
I mean, the big game changer for me was nutrition. And that's kind of what guided me into wanting to help others with nutrition because you cannot reach your full potential if you're putting trash into your body. I primarily work with women with hormone imbalances. I'm on the older end of athletes as well. Like I'm 39, I'll be 40 this year. And I've gone through menopause, all of the hormone issues. I kind of use myself as a guinea pig, figuring out with food how to balance, how to be able to perform at my best. Um, but yeah, like really getting my diet in check was a big game changer. I mean, obviously, having the sports background that I do have and the genetics that helped, because I've always just been a top athlete. Like any sport that I did, I excelled at. Um, but powerlifting really has, taught me the importance of precision, of focus, because like if anybody's handled me in a meet, like I'm very calm. I don't like a lot of like hype. And I have really bad anxiety in real life that people don't really see.
Really?
I'm diagnosed with severe,
Wow.
yeah. So like competitions are like a challenge for me. Like I was actually just talking to my counselor about that this morning because I just got back from Germany late Wednesday night from a comp, and every time I get on the platform, it is a challenge because my anxiety, like, I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like crowds. I don't like a lot of chaos. And that's what a powerlifting meet is. So each meet, I get better and better at handling those emotions, controlling the anxiety, and just that challenge of like being able to get up on the platform and do what I do. And like, and on the inside, I'm like screaming, but on the outside, I like cool, calm, and collected. Like,
Yeah. Isn't that fucking interesting, Landry? Because I talk to a lot of high performance entrepreneurs, and I just got off a podcast with a very successful entrepreneur, but he works with a lot of CEOs and other high performance entrepreneurs. And we were having a conversation about what drives success. It's some sort of emotional pain or some sort of childhood wound or any sort of wound in that matter that drives success, because we're sort of seeking that next high. We want to sort of feel whatever we're feeling within inside of us. But one of the most amazing things that can happen and transform our lives is sitting through pain. You know, this is why the whole ice bath thing is fucking crazy right now. You know, you get to see people get up at 3 a.m. to jump in freezing cold water
yep,
because we know that, you know, it's kind of corny and it's cliche, but it's true. Diamonds are built under pressure. Yeah.
yep.
So we have to be put under pressure for us to grow. And it's the same sort of analogy you could use within the gym. In order to get stronger, in order to build muscle, your body has to be put under some sort of stress for it to improve. So your training loads have to become progressively harder over time. That's fascinating. So, how do you manage anxiety? You know, like dealing with that stress and those emotions and those influx of, you know, hormones. Like, what are some of the things that you do? Especially because, I mean, for a powerlifting meet, as you said, you've got the crowd, you've got, you know, obviously the weight on your shoulders. You're trying to sort of set some records. You know, how do you manage those on the day?
So I am a big like visual person. I start preparing for a competition a couple weeks in advance. Just
Wow.
getting my mind in that place, like visualizing the lifts, you know, reminding myself all of the training that I put in to get to that point. When I get to the meet, like one of my last meets, not so much Germany because I was cutting up with my friend Victoria the whole time. She's a riot. But one of my last meets that I did here in the States, um, people thought I was like meditating because like when I'm in a meet, like I'm not paying attention to what the other lifters are doing. Like I'm not trying to be rude, but it's my way of just like not getting worked up, not worrying about what other people are lifting, the crowd, all the things. So I'll literally like sit off to the side and I'll just have my headphones in, my head down. I'm usually listening to some sort of like motivational something or other, you know, like a David Goggins or something, you know, like, yes, I am a lion, rah. Like, um, and then when I get up on the platform, I've learned, and I learned this from my first meet, because my first meet, I actually had a panic attack during squats, which is the first lift.
Oh, shit.
I was like sweating, I was shaking, I was crying. I had a referee tell me, he's like, you know, we're supposed to do this because it's fun. And I was like, oh, yeah, that. Like, um, so now I know, because like I remember my first squat, my first meet. I walked up to the platform and I looked up and all I saw was like the whole crowd. And I'm like, oh shit. And, like, so now when I go, I look at like the top of the referee's head that's in front of me, and I like the rest just goes black. And it's like I've been able to almost create this calm before the storm. Like I don't hear anything except for my coach's
Wow.
voice. Like it'll be like dead silent in a room just full of absolute chaos. And then I just do what I do. And like it's really helped me to be able to control those emotions, not panic. But I mean, lifters ask me all the time, they're like, "Do you get nervous?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Like
Yeah.
every competition I do, I'm like, "Ah."
Yeah, it's interesting too, Landry. Like stress can be converted into good. Did you see when Eddie Hall deadlifted? He was the first person to deadlift 500 kilograms raw, and he talked about it in an interview that he doesn't remember anything. Like he got a nosebleed and he kind of blacked out a little bit, but he was in the zone. He set his mindset into lifting this phenomenal weight, which is fucking incredible. Um, does that sort of work for you? Like you were able to just block out the noise and just focus on the task at hand, but you're somehow able to tap into, your adrenaline. Is that what you're able to do?
Yeah, it is. Like it's kind of this weird balance because yeah, I don't ever remember like I generally don't like so in powerlifting there's usually a board that has three lights and you if you get three white lights it's a good lift, if you get three red lights it's a bad lift, like you can get 2 to 1, like either way. I typically don't look at the board. I just do the lift and then just walk away because I don't even remember really what happened. But when I'm walking up to that bar, it's like going back to like your statement earlier about like childhood trauma, the mental pain. Like I'm literally like thinking of all of the things that like could have stopped me from that moment or that caused the pain in my life that like pushed me into what I'm doing today. Because like the big push for me to get into like a strength sport like powerlifting is there was a day when I was weak and I was attacked and like I was almost murdered years ago. So like
Jesus.
there's a lot of like mental struggle and I just channel that into the bar. So when I walk up to that bar and I feel that metal in my hands, I'm thinking about all of the reasons why I shouldn't be able to do this, and I just do. Like
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, like what the human brain and the body can do. Like there was that other individual in the Olympic Games. He was a German weightlifter. I think his name was Magnus something.
yeah,
But his wife tragically died in a car accident, and he used that as fuel. He used that as energy, and he was able to sort of harness that into his lifts, and he won the gold medal. But what's fascinating is how we're able to tap into that, how we're able to sort of draw stress and trauma and open wounds and channel that into something positive. Do you, because you work with clients, you work with people, and you're a nutritionist and sports coach, do you sort of talk to them about being able to harness that and use that as fuel?
I do. Yes. Especially working primarily with women. I mean, most of us are coming into this sport because, or strength sports in general, or nutrition because of low self esteem, abuse, some sort of trauma. And I try to empower them, because it's such an awful feeling when you feel like everything's been taken away from you or that you're not valued or that you're not strong. And so to be able to like teach these people to harness those things and like fight back, but like in a positive way is just, it's so incredible. Like, um, I mean, my client Victoria that I competed with in Germany is a perfect example. She is a world-class powerlifter. She's from Bulgaria. She is young. She just turned 25 actually on the meet day this last weekend, but she did not have a great diet. She didn't have a lot of guidance. And last year at this same powerlifting meet, she blew off both of her quads during squats.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
Yes. And she could have easily, I just did a post about it today on Instagram. Like she could have easily given up. Like that's a catastrophic injury to come back from. Some people
Yeah.
just, and she stuck with it. And I met her in Ireland at a competition this past summer, and she hired me for her nutrition. And she has made leaps and bounds, physically, mentally, and ultimately the meet, like she ended up beating me. We were like neck and neck, and it came down to the last deadlift. And it was like the best story of just like this comeback I could ever imagine. And to like know that I was part of that journey, like I got her nutrition on point, made sure her hydration was on point so we didn't have to risk another tear, another injury. She was fueled better than she ever has been. And like the confidence that she had, like, I mean, her smile was just like a mile wide. Like it,
Yeah. And powerlifting is amazing, but you know what? I have such respect for powerlifters and the incredible amount of weight that they can do. Like, I just remember watching Ronnie Coleman. Do you remember Ronnie Coleman? He was 8-time Mr. Olympia, and some of his impressive lifts that he could do, like he back squatted over 800 pounds, which is like 400 kilos. And he said on Joe Rogan, he said one of his only regrets in life is he could have gone heavier. Yeah, it's crazy. He's like one of the strongest bodybuilders I've ever seen, but just remarkable. But a double quad tear, like I've seen
Yeah.
that. I've seen
Yeah.
someone pull double quads, and it's a disaster. But what about
Yeah.
your own sort of injuries? I mean, because you're using a tremendous amount of weight, Landry.
Yeah.
How do you stay? Um, healthy? How do you look after your body? What are some of the things that you do? Do you incorporate a lot of stretching or yoga, and obviously nutrition will come into play as well?
Yep. So when it comes to powerlifting, you don't want to be too mobile.
Yep.
That's why, like you see, like you do jujitsu. Um, you see a lot of powerlifters that go into jujitsu and they have a tendency to get injured really fast because we're not meant to be mobile. Um, because we need to have that stretch reflex in our body. So I don't do a ton of stretching. I do enough to make sure like my hips are loose, things like that, but recovery is incredibly important. So obviously my nutrition is absolutely dialed in. Like I get blood work constantly to make sure that all of my levels are where they need to be. I track my food, I track my water, like salt intake, all the things. Like I'm very regimented with that. But then when it comes to recovery, like I do chiropractic, I do soft tissue massage, I do dry needling, PT, saunas, red light therapy. I've done like cryotherapy. I really like that. Like for instance, I'm actually out of town right now. Got back from Germany Wednesday night. Now I'm in Ohio handling an athlete.
Wow.
Um, I'm going to see my old chiropractor. He's like one of the best in the business. Doc McDougall out of Indianapolis. He's known as Strongman Doc on Instagram. He works with a lot of the strongmen like Eddie Hall and them.
Wow.
You'll at like the pro events. He goes to Arnold every. He's phenomenal. I will like literally travel across the world to have him work on me. So after this meet, I'm heading to Indianapolis to have him adjust me before I go back to Virginia where I live. Um, and then, yeah, just having a whole team of practitioners behind me because there's no way that I could stay doing what I'm doing without them. It literally takes a village. I've been very fortunate to not have any like major injuries. It's like
Yeah.
normal aches and pains. Like during my competition in Germany this last weekend, I've been dealing with a nerve impingement on my right side, and unfortunately, that showed through on my bench press. So my bench was down. I was able to get my opener, but I wasn't able to get anything beyond that because what happens when the nerve fires is my whole right side just shuts off, and I
Yep.
can't
Like goes
press.
numb.
Yeah, it goes numb. I'll have like the shockwave of nerve, like fiery pain from like my jaw all the way down my right arm, and my pressing power just completely goes away.
Yeah.
It's an issue that I've been dealing with. I've been able to work around it for the most part because typically in training, I don't squat and bench in the same day. So I was able to like train bench, push bench in prep, but then when I was on the platform, unfortunately, it came back to haunt me.
Yeah.
Um, but we know what we got to do. My scapula and my serratus are like locked right now. And so it's causing this impingement because I'm compensating with my neck and my trap.
Yep.
So everything's just kind of like mad.
So
So
what are you doing to manage that? Like, are you doing some trigger ball therapy? Like, are you, deep tissue? Like, or what are you doing to help with the recovery?
so right now, I ended up meeting a really high level physio in Germany, Nico Herber. He's out of Hamburg. He is working with me right now. He sent me some activation exercises to help with the scapula and the serratus, but also some nerve flossing. So I'm working with him on that side of things as far as like rehabilitated like exercises. I'm gonna be with Best Life Physical Therapy in Virginia Beach at Flex Gym. They're phenomenal. I get dry needling through them. They'll do like some manipulation. And then there's a massage therapist out of the gym that I train at as well. So I'll get deep tissue massage. Like I'll get massage like basically every week for the next probably month or two to try to get everything calmed down. The dry needling usually helps, and then just doing those rehab exercises. I wish I could take Doc McDougall with me,
Yeah.
but I can't. So my chiropractic, we're still kind of like working that out right now, but I've got a couple options in the area that I'm looking at. So
Yeah. It's interesting too, Landry. One of the biggest predictors of mortality that you can live a longer life is maximal strength. It's muscle mass and increasing strength. And I learnt about this from Charles Poliquin, rest in peace. I don't know if you remember Charles Poliquin, but he was a world famous strength and conditioning coach. But he was talking about that. But for someone to achieve phenomenal strength like what you've done, is there an equal or greater cost on longevity? With joint pain, arthritis. What is the life shelf of a power lifter? Like, how long can a power lifter go before they need to back off?
so honestly, that's kind of like not to give you a vague answer, but it depends.
Yep.
Um, I mean, like for me, I'm doing all of the things to make sure that I can be in this sport for a very long time. I did not start powerlifting until I was 35,
Wow.
and I'm going to be 40 this year, and I'm stronger than I ever have been, and I'm actually in less pain than I was like when I was in my 20s. Cause like when I was in the military, this is silly, but I was a long distance runner. I used to do that for fun.
Yeah.
Now you won't catch me running unless someone's chasing me.
Yeah.
But like in my body at like 23 years old was just like broken. Like my knees were crap, like my hips hurt, like everything from the running because I didn't have any muscle. I mean, I was like 130 something pounds when I was in the military. And like now I walk around like 175, 180 in the off season. So imagine like the difference. Like it's crazy.
Yep.
And my body feels so good, but it's again, it's I think so many lifters run into the trap of they see a lifter like myself, the high level. They want to get there. Then they want to get there fast.
Yep.
They don't look at the background of athletes like me, right? It's like, yes, I got to the top very fast, but literally my entire life has been nothing but strength sports.
Yep.
So I am an anomaly, essentially. I take recovery very, very seriously. I don't cut corners. I take training very seriously. Like I push very hard, but I also put emphasis on technique because you can try to lift these massive amounts of weight, but if you're doing it incorrectly, that's when injury happens. That's when your body really starts to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So it's like I would rather move better and lift less than just try to muscle my way through and like break my back to do so. Like it drives me crazy when I tell them how much I deadlift, they're like, "Doesn't your back hurt?" I'm like, "No, because I do it correctly."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm a beltless deadlifter. Like,
Yeah.
but I work really hard on my core strength. I work really hard on if we find any imbalances, like all of that. So like someone like me is going to stay in the sport much longer because I have patience and I understand the process. There's a lot of lifters that come out the gates blazing. Like they come onto the scene, they're this huge phenomenon, and then they're gone in 3 to 5 years because
Yeah.
they have some massive injury. And it's unfortunate, but it just really depends on the mentality. Like
Yeah.
it's a long game. It's not something that happens overnight, especially if you
Yeah.
ones.
What's that saying, Landry? I forget what it is. Fast results, faster pain, or something. I can't remember. But we were talking about Ronnie Coleman, eight-time Mr. Olympia, and some of the most impressive lifts that he did. But have you seen him now, Landry? Like he's walking around on crutches. The poor guy. He looks in terrible pain. And I'm thinking, he was one of the greatest bodybuilders ever. But now look at him. But he doesn't regret it, But what can people do to manage their longevity in this sport? Because it is taxing. You mentioned recovery. What are some of the things that you practice in recovery? Magnesium, vitamin D. Talk about all that sort of stuff. Hormones, blood work, everything that you do. How do you maximize recovery?
Yeah, so exactly what you said. So I get blood work done regularly. Like I just came off a competition, so I'm gonna go probably next week get blood work done. In the off season, like the weights come down, nutrition stays dialed in. Like I don't take time off on that. Like I'm constantly checking like blood sugar levels. I'm checking blood pressure. I'm checking my blood work. I actually am partnered with Thorne supplements as well. So I think it's very important to take things like magnesium glycinate. Um, they have this really awesome mix that I use at night. It's got GABA and magnesium glycinate in it. It's like this chocolate
What's
powder that I put hot water in,
Oh,
and
that
it
sounds
tastes like
nice.
hot chocolate. Oh, it's
Yeah.
delicious. Yeah,
So, so,
like
so
it
mag-
helps.
magnesium glycinate, and what else is GABA induces,
GABA.
obviously, which is the neurotransmitter for calmness. Does it
Mhm.
have anything else in the blend?
There's a little bit of protein. So there's, I think, 15 grams of protein, casein protein. So if you're one of those that like gets hungry at night or you're running low on protein intake, it's perfect for that because you're gonna get like that sweet kind of like I say it's like a warm hug because
Yeah,
it's literally like drinking hot chocolate before bed without the bad calories, you know?
I'm gonna have to
Um,
get this. I'm gonna have to.
so good. I'll send you the link. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Like anybody that like orders through me, you get a discount. They're phenomenal. But yeah, so I take that at night. I also take the super EPAs, so like your fish oil. I take that every day. Vitamin D, K2, making sure that, especially like as a woman getting older, bone health is super important.
Yep.
And I used to live in a place that like the sun didn't come out a whole lot, so vitamin D wasn't really like a thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I need to make sure that I supplement that. And then I take a joint support as well, by Thorne. That's been really helpful just to kind of keep my body from like getting achy. But I'm not like one to take like a whole bunch of supplements because
No.
I get a lot of it from my food. So like those are like my staple. I do also take creatine every day, and they have like this hormone support. It's called ovarian support, that I just put in my like water bottle in the morning, and it helps balance your hormones naturally. And just like it's not just for like women that have like perimenopause, postmenopause. It's also like helpful with like menstrual cycles, things like that, when our hormones are all out of whack and we're crying over nothing. You know how it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, it's interesting too, Landry, like because men and women are different in how they process emotions, but also their hormones influence so many different things. Have you found that your hormones fluctuate a lot, especially leading up to a meet? Something that's quite strenuous and quite taxing on the body, such as powerlifting. Has sometimes your hormones hijacked the system?
Yeah, so actually that's how I found out that I was going through menopause. I've got a handle on it now, because I actually like I work with a doctor now to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. Um, but back in 2022, I started noticing very strange things happening because like when I first came into powerlifting, like my strength, my numbers was like really going up. Your typical newbie gains, like that's what we call them. And then in 2022, I suddenly started gaining all this weight, and like the things that used to work weren't working anymore. And I was in a lot of pain, and my strength was kind of like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm training the same. I'm working really hard. I don't understand. And then I started having like major digestion issues. Like it got to the point where I couldn't eat anything but chicken and rice. And if I did, it was kind of like that, like, I'm gonna pay for this later because I would just get deathly ill. Like I'll never forget one of my last competitions before I found out that my hormones were crashed. I was in Pittsburgh I ended up winning the meet, but when we got to deadlifts, somebody came in the back and gave me like a little like cupcake. And I was like, "Oh, that should be fine. It's just like a tiny thing, like we're fine." Well, it was not fine. As soon as I got ready to go to deadlift, I ended up throwing up in a trash can and pulled my opener, came back, and I threw up in between every single attempt.
Wow.
Yeah. And I felt really bad because it was a drug tested meet. So I won the meet and I had to get drug tested, which meant that I had to pee in a cup. And I was so dehydrated from getting sick that like these poor girls had to wait like an hour and a half for me to like get enough fluid in my system to give a sample. And I ended up going to a meet in April of 2022 where my numbers were starting to like go back up, and then meet day, everything crashed. Like
Yep.
I completely tanked. Like I didn't bomb out, but like my numbers were like some of the worst they've ever been. And I was like,
Wow.
what's happening? And I ended up going to the doctor that next Tuesday, got blood work done, and my blood work came back that I was postmenopausal. Like I had no hormones left. Um,
Wow.
HEA was through the roof. Like it was like over 300 and it was supposed to be like under 196. And I'm like, what is going on? So like it indicated that I had PCOS, which I've never been like officially diagnosed. I get care through the Veterans Hospital. So like unless you're
Yeah.
like an 8-year-old Vietnam vet, you don't really get a whole lot of help.
What's PCOS?
PCOS, so it's a condition with women, with your ovaries. It creates a hormone imbalance. A lot of times, like those women will have um like cysts on the ovaries. You'll
Oh yeah.
have like higher testosterone levels than most women. It can cause just a lot of pituitary issues, the way that your body communicates with hormone production. It can be a really nasty thing. It also can interfere with a lot of weight loss. A lot of women will have like sudden weight gain. They have a hard time losing weight. So I deal with a lot of women now that have that diagnosis, and we're able to combat that with food. Because again, I use myself as a guinea pig, like working through it because I didn't have a doctor to like help me at that time. And I was determined to like get my life back because it was to the point where I would literally lay on the couch till the very last minute to go train because I was in so much pain and I was so fatigued that I was just like every day was just this like mental battle because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Um, but I was so thankful that I ended up getting with a clinic, getting my hormones on track, and doing it safely, because that's a big thing, you see in the sport is people just being reckless, not
Yeah.
taking care of their bodies, not getting blood work, not going through professionals to make sure that they're being safe. So yeah, that's how I am able to do what I do, stay healthy. At 39, I can hang with the 20 something year olds. So
Yeah. Yeah. I had Chest Bra. So Chest Bra is a very well known fitness influencer. He is a bodybuilder. He's got a show coming up, and I'll be interviewing him again. He's got a documentary coming out on Stan this year. But he says it's the fittest, it's the healthiest he's ever been because he manages his stress. He checks his bloods as well. He's very diligent with that.
right.
Um, because I think diet and nutrition and exercise can be quite conflicting. People just don't really know where to go. And I'm sure that you've done a thorough research in protein intake and obviously the remarkable benefits of being on a meat eating diet. And I think the research backs it up. I mean, yes, you can be a vegan and you
Right.
can. There was that documentary on Netflix a while ago called The Game Changers, and it was talking about a
Yes.
vegan diet. The problem is you don't get a lot of the amino acids and a lot of the other nutrients that are found in meat because we've evolved from Paleolithic times. We haven't, I think in this last, say, however many years, we're just bombarded with so many chemicals, pesticides and herbicides, all sorts of fucking shit that's in our food.
Yep.
But what have you found from the research, and especially with your own training, on the benefits of eating meat and recovery and performance?
It's a game changer. I mean, I do work with vegans, I work with vegetarians, and it's very difficult for them to be able to get the proper protein intake. And like you said, the amino acids for recovery, muscle building, you can definitely tell a difference between an athlete that consumes meat versus an athlete that does not. I mean, my protein intake is very high because obviously you need that to build muscle, but you also need it to recover. I mean, like red meat alone, you have creatine in the red meat. So you're
Yeah,
getting a natural source of creatine and you get so many nutrients that you don't have to take all these supplements all the time because it's like a lot of those vegans and vegetarians, it's like whenever I bring in a new nutrition client, I always ask them like what is their vitamin intake, like what types of supplements are you taking? And it's usually like a laundry list of things. And I'm just like, like if you would just change your diet, like you wouldn't have to take all of that and you'd feel so much better. And I understand like people have like religious reasons or,
yeah,
like they're bothered by the animals and things like that. So I'm never going to force that type of diet. Like I'm never going to be like, you have to eat like a carnivore diet, like, meat and you're a diet. Like I'm not going to do that. But it is a game changer. Like I could not imagine doing what I do, being able to recover and have the muscle mass that I do if I didn't eat meat. And I'm definitely not going to be choking down like pea protein on a daily basis.
yeah,
It's like there's no way. No way. I mean, I go to Costco and I buy like the big packs of sirloin because it's super easy, super affordable, and I can make meal prep for like an entire week just on that. And it's so filling. It helps me just have maximum strength and yeah, and like all the pesticides, all the crap that's in our food, like that drives me crazy too when I see like a lot of the vegetarian diets and things like that. They do like the fake meat, and I'm like, do you read the ingredients in that? Like, oh my
yeah.
God, like
It's full of shit.
it's so bad. Like
Yeah,
bad. Like my little sister, like love her, but she eats that stuff and like unfortunately, like you can tell because she's overweight. Like if you put us next to each other, you'd be like, how are you related? And it kills me because I'm like, this is literally what I do for a living. And you're just like eating shit. And they don't know what healthy is. And I blame social media. I blame just social norms, I guess, if you will, because especially with women, we've been taught so many just shit things like juice cleanses and I'm gonna intermittent fast and I'm gonna do this Mediterranean diet thing and
yeah,
blah, like it's just like, oh my God, stop. Just stop. Like,
yeah. It's interesting, Landry. There's a country. Sorry. Well, there's an island off the country of Greece. I can't remember the name of it, but they call it the island where people forget to die, because their diet consists of olive oil and fish and organic meat.
yes,
And also, I think too, in Japan somewhere there is a part of Japan where people live a long time as well. I
yes.
think one of the oldest people in Japan is like 110 or some shit.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's so conflicting. Like diet is so conflicting because for years, right, butter was demonized. Don't have butter, it's bad for you. But little do people know that butter is extremely good for you if it's grass fed, if it's organic, it's high in vitamins A, D, E, K. It's a fat soluble. It's very, very important for hormones and testosterone production. It can help you aid in fat loss. Plus, butter's fucking delicious. Like, why the
It
fuck would
is.
you get that out of your diet? It's
Right.
it's so good. It's yum. And then also red meat as well, Landry. Like on the Game Changers, they were talking about how red meat's bad for you. No, it's not. If you get it's grass fed, it's free range, it's organic. Um, Extremely good for you. But what about the carnivore diet? You did mention the carnivore diet. What do you think about that? Like I heard, what's Jordan Peterson's daughter's name? Michaela Peterson. She's been on the carnivore diet for like 5 or 7 years or something. But have you done a bit of research in the carnivore diet?
So I have, and I'm probably gonna make people mad because like I really like doing the research on it. It's just kind of like a new fancier keto, essentially,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Um, to me, it's not a sustainable way of dieting, or just living in general. I get the idea behind it, but it's like we want to reinvent the wheel. We want to do the next latest and greatest fad thing out there. It's like, how about we just like eat a balanced fucking diet? Like I
Yeah.
personally don't want to just like eat a bunch of meat all of the time
No.
with like nothing else. Like, no, it's not necessary. It's like, give me my carbs, give me my fats, give me my meats. Like, I'm happy, we're good. Like, that's one thing that, as an international competitor, leaving the United States, going over to Europe, like I spent 2 months in Europe earlier this fall, and then I just got back from Germany. I was there for 10 days. And it's like, it's just so simple. Like, these people are like literally like fresh off the farm food. They're eating carbs, they're eating fats. Like, they've got breads, they've got pastas, they've got rice. Like, I've been to Greece. Like, that is some of the best food I've ever had.
It's
And
delicious, eh?
yeah, like, and
Yeah.
I ate like way more than I normally eat in the States. Lost weight, had no digestion issues, got to enjoy some absolutely incredible foods. And it's so nice to be able to just like walk down the street and there's all these like fresh markets that you can just pick up fresh produce, fresh eggs, fresh meats, all the
Yep.
things. And then I come back to the States and it's like instant, like, I've got gut issues. I gained 10 pounds because I went back to eating like I normally do. I have to like sift through like what's organic, what's not processed, like all these things. And it's like over there, it's all organic. They don't have to label it organic because it just is. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
you
Yep.
know, it just I it kills me like when I bring on nutrition clients and they're like, "Oh my God, like I did all of these things and they didn't work." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, like that's crazy." Like, and then I give them their meal plan and they're like, "But this is so simple." I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I don't have time to like cook all of this crazy stuff. So it's like I literally, like, if I can make it 3 ingredients with some like good seasoning or sauces, I'm like, bam, done.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you don't need to make it complicated. And yeah, like, yeah, the Mediterranean diet, the carnivore diet, like all of those things, it's like it's just a fad and it's like a fancy name to get people to spend more money to do their diet. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yep.
oh, follow my carnivore diet for
Yeah.
1999 and like whatever, like get out
It's
of
like
here.
the Liver King. Do you remember the Liver King?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is like 100%.
Yep.
I could
Yep.
go on and on about this. Like, it
Yeah,
just
that the Liver King guy, he got busted down the track.
right.
A lot of it was obviously a money scheme gimmick. But I used to be a PT, Landry, and I used to say to my clients, if it falls off a tree, if it grows in the ground, walks the earth, or lives in the ocean, is the kind of food you want to be eating.
Yep.
A balanced diet that consists of carbs, fats, and proteins, and obviously addressing other essential deficiencies. If you're deficient in vitamin D, magnesium, zinc is another one as well. They're three big minerals that most people are deficient in as well. Sleep's another thing too. But also, I was talking to Mark Atobry. So Mark Atobry is a world-class high performance coach over here in Australia. And he was saying when I was chatting to him on the podcast, we've dumped over 85,000 chemicals since World War II. You think about all
Mhm.
the shit that's found in our food today. It's not what it was like, back in the 50s or 40s. And no wonder people are getting fucking sick. They're coming up with digestive issues. Mental health is going through the fucking roof. What we have in our food is processed and artificial sweeteners. It's terrible for the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you found out about that, Landry, about some of the foods and things? Because a lot of people are coming up with food intolerances and, they're getting, all sorts of problems. Like, but what have you found out about the current food industry?
It's poison. Um, Especially in America. Like, I haven't been to like Australia, so I can't really like speak to that. But like, I actually did like an experiment unintentionally. years ago. So I have a son, he's 16 now. But back then, when we did this little experiment, I think he was 4. So my mom was watching him for some time. And my son, when he was 4, like I was very fortunate that he was a very calm kid. And my mom calls me and she's like, he's being a demon. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, I don't know. Like, he's acting crazy. Like, I can't get him to calm down. He's just really angry. And I was like, well, what did you do? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know. So when I went to pick him up, I asked her, like, did you give him anything? Like, whatever. And she's like, no, I don't think so. I looked in her fridge. She had a big bottle of the Hawaiian punch. So it's got the red dye in it,
Yep.
right? And I was like, have you been giving him this? And she said, yeah. And I was like, okay. And so I gave him another glass of it. And sure enough, he ended up acting like a psycho. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, this is what it was.
Yep.
And there's been so many studies out there that red dyes are a problem. There's so many chemicals in our foods. That was part of, I went postmenopausal at 36. Part of it was because of the food industry, because of the pesticides that they put on our food. A lot of it was, when I was in the military, I was exposed to a lot of things, forced to get like certain vaccines and things like that, that also probably didn't help with my hormones because I ended up actually, it's probably lucky that I had a child when I did because my last menstrual cycle was when I was 22 and I had my son when I was 23 and it never came back.
Wow.
And wasn't training hard enough to like have it go away. I wasn't starving myself. I was a very active, very healthy person, but it just never came back. And, I went to the military and I was like, something's wrong, something's wrong. Nope. They're like, no, that's normal. You're on birth control, which is another big thing. Uh, they put me on Depo, which is like the worst form of birth control you could possibly do. Um, and that actually crashed my ovarian function. And that's
Wow.
probably why I stopped having a menstrual cycle because I got off that in 2022 in November and they were like, "Well, your cycle should come back since you're off it. Give it like a couple months." And I'm like, "Okay." Well, it never came back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Mhm.
It's interesting you mentioned um, contraception, Landry, and the research backs it up. It's an endocrine disruptor. Xenoestrogens, which are environmental toxins, which are found everywhere, but also the contraception is an interesting one because that actually gets flushed through the waterline, and we drink that. We drink
Yes.
that because a lot of that isn't really filtered out through our water. And if you
Yep.
look at men's testosterone, like as well, Landry, we have 100 times less testosterone than our great grandfathers ever did. There's
Yes.
a huge decline. Men are very feminized. People are always, and we can go into masculinity and all this sort of
Oh, yeah.
stuff. But
You see
there is
male gyno everywhere. Like
yeah, yeah. It
crazy.
is a big problem. Like it's literally making us weak.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. But
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you look out for with your nutrition? Like, do you eat organic? Are you at the farmers market, or are you going through a certain supply or a farm? Like, how do you find the research to back up what you're saying?
So that's what I do. So I make sure like if I'm buying like any kind of fish, it's wild caught. I'm not doing any farm raised whatsoever. I try to go to local farmers markets, local butchers, if I can. If I have to go to a regular grocery store, then I'm looking for organic. I'm looking for grass fed, free range, like cage free, like anything that I can. If you come to my house, you're not going to find processed foods. Like
Yep.
I just don't have it. Um, Fresh fruits and vegetables, I make sure that I wash them really well. I mean, obviously, like in the United States, our pesticides regulations are shit. So, like, it
Yeah.
is what it is. Like, at least with the organic, you can hope that it's less than what. the normal is, but I mean, it's so bad. And then I won't drink the tap water. I will either buy bottled water or like reverse osmosis water like filtration. I won't drink out of it. Like, which is like when I'm in Europe, it's like I get so excited because like places like Scotland and Germany, they have such high regulations on the water lines that like you can drink out of the tap and it's completely safe. So it's like
Yeah.
so nice to be able to like not have to buy like all of this water all the time because it's just safe to drink.
Yep.
But here it's like, no, like you've got, like you said, the contraceptives, you've got all sorts of chemicals. Like I can't tell you how many times, like when I was stationed in New York, we were told don't drink the water because like farm runoff was getting into the water supply. And it's like, what the hell, guys? Like, we're supposed to be this like highly developed country, but we've got like basically like raw sewage going into our water supply like on a regular
Yep.
basis. That's disgusting. Like,
Yeah.
I can't.
There's a term in Bali, they call it Bali belly. So if you go to Bali, because the locals are very used to the water, but this happened to me in Thailand. They say just be careful drinking the water over there. You can get very sick. And I had a fucking high temperature and fever and vomiting and diarrhea and all sorts of shit. Because the locals over there, they're used to it. But Westerners, if they go to the country and some of that water can leak in when you have a shower, I
Yeah.
got very sick, and yeah, we're sicker than ever, aren't we? You know, like society as a whole. You know, we're getting children that are on the spectrum. We're getting kids that are ADHD.
Yeah.
We're bombarded with all these chemicals and toxins, and you know the stats don't lie. You know, heart disease is up, cardiovascular disease is up, diabetes is up. You know, we're doing something wrong in the West. You don't see this in other countries, as we were talking about Greece. You know, they
Yep.
have very, very strict rules and regulations. Yeah. What can people look for? Like, how can people manage their toxin overload? And especially too, like if we talk about like you know, cosmetics, you know, shampoos and conditioners, and you know, even some certain makeups that women do. A lot of those are environmental toxins, you know. But what can people look out for to try and minimize their toxins?
I mean, really just like focusing on trying to find when it comes to food, like avoiding those processed foods, going for your organic foods, the fresh farm raised. If you can find a local farmer in your area, a local butcher, because chances are they're not using the same chemicals that these big farms that are just mass producing are doing. When it comes to like cosmetics, like shampoos, conditioners, deodorants, I'm always looking for what like what chemicals it contains. Like if you can get things that are free of like the heavy metals and these different toxins, like, you know, now it's like this scary trend with all of like the fillers and things like that, you know, Botox and all of these things. It's like you're literally putting poison in your body. Like, you know, there's things that you can do with natural occurring substances. You know, coconut oil is wonderful. Like
Yep.
you can use it as a skin moisturizer. You can use it as a hair moisturizer. You can use it as a makeup remover. Like there's all these things that, and you can cook with it. And it's like
Yep.
you literally can do a ton of things with one little jar of coconut oil.
And it's delicious.
Yeah. Like things like that, you know, just looking for alternatives that aren't created with all of these chemicals. Like I really don't wear makeup at all. And I look much younger than what I am because I'm not putting all of those chemicals on my face. Um, and I do like to use coconut oil. Like that's why I brought that up because I I do use that. It's so nice on my skin. I love it. And it smells good. Um,
It does. Yeah, coconut does smell good.
I skin healthy because it's like I find when I put on like a foundation or something like that, my skin just
Breaks
I look
out.
awful. Like, I'm like, "Oh my god, what is that?" Like,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
women are doing it, but I mean, you don't.
Yeah, it is. It's just fascinating. It's so interesting, Landry. And yeah, I mean, some of your clients that you work with, I'm sure, have had some health complications. But what's interesting as well is you can become intolerant to anything. Like I remember a client of mine who actually became intolerant to eggs. And eggs actually show quite often on food intolerance tests because they're fantastic. They're a great source of nutrients and protein, and there's a lot of vitamins and minerals in there. But um, they actually started to develop some nausea and pain and certain digestive problems from overloading a shit ton of eggs. And bodybuilders, I find too, because they eat a lot of eggs, sometimes eggs can show up on a food intolerance test as well. And that's why it's super important to have such an array of nutritious vegetables and protein and healthy fats and things like that. But what does your diet consist of, Landry? Like, what's breakfast all the way through to dinner?
So it varies because I'm a firm believer of not restricting yourself because I think that's like a big problem and that's what's causing a lot of these food intolerances is that we've been taught such a restrictive way of life that we just eat the same thing all the time and then it's like your gut health goes to shit because it only knows one thing. So, I mean, I try to keep a good array of food. Like I typically will make like 2 different flavors of meals for the week so I don't get bored. But like a typical breakfast, I might do like overnight oats. Um, with protein, I'll do eggs and sausage with like potatoes. Um, I love like Greek yogurt with granola. I put like honey on there. Like I always try to like have a really big, hearty, healthy breakfast, like lots of protein, because I usually have a very busy day. So making sure that I load things is kind of like what I do, because in case I get busy later on, I don't want to be like getting to the end of the day and be like, shit, I still have 1,000 calories to go. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So my breakfast is usually about 1,000 calories. I usually will have orange juice because it's just vitamin C, lots of carbs. It's good, like it makes me feel good. Then I'm always snacking. Like I usually will do like I have these little like jerky sticks that I like to have on hand to keep my protein going. It's not a ton, but it's nice. I'll do like a lot of like nuts and berries and more granola. Greek yogurt is always like a go-to. Like I'll take the Oikos 000 and just throw a little bit of granola on top and like eat that on the go. Lunch, I usually will do some sort of like chicken and potatoes or steak and rice. Um, and more snacks in between. Before my workout, I usually train in the evenings, so
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I get some clean, fast digesting carbs before my workout. So I usually will use like some sort of like carb powder. NutriBio makes a really good one. It's called Super Carb. I get the raspberry lemonade flavor, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, it tastes like juice. I'm just like, oh, and it's
Yum.
25 grams of carbs, super clean, and it's really good. And then I'll do like a protein shake with that. And then after my workout, make sure that I do like another protein shake. I might do another round of carbs if I'm not going to be able to get to dinner right away. And then dinner, I usually do kind of like a lighter meal. Like I'll still do like steak and rice, steak and potatoes. I try to do something that's lower in fat because the fattier the meal before bed, the harder it is for your body to like be at rest because your body's spending so much more energy trying to digest the fatty food
Yeah.
versus being able to focus on sleep and recovery because that's like
Yes.
key. Because my goal is to get at least 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
Because I just start to crash. So yeah, it's usually like less carbs, and like more veggies and lean protein for dinner. So a lot of times actually I like to do fish. Like I'm a big fan of like salmon, cod. I'll do that at night with like asparagus or green beans or something. And then my yummy protein GABA magnesium drink for night night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try that. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
called Recovery Pro. It's delicious and
Recovery Pro.
uh,
Have you known as well that your neurotransmitters are made in the gut lining? So how you feel cognitively and how you feel mentally is actually dictated on a few things, but also food obviously has a huge proponent towards clarity and focus and drive. Um, I learned this from Charles Poliquin. The first bite that you eat in the morning, provided it's food, sets up your entire neurotransmitter production for the day. He was an advocate of the meat and nut breakfast, having red meat or some sort of meat and some nuts. And the idea is that the meat provides a steady, slow release in blood sugar, and the nuts provide a healthy source of smart fats that keeps your blood sugar level stable for an extended period of time. But also, the meat and nut breakfast actually increases wakeful neurotransmitters, so dopamine and acetylcholine. Dopamine, obviously, the neurotransmitter for motivation and drive. Acetylcholine for focus and attention. I used to find having a classic bodybuilding breakfast like oats, a shake, and a banana, an hour later, I feel like having a fucking sleep. So what I do is I prioritize carbohydrates leading up to training or even before bed, because carbs actually increase serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter that aids sleep. So it was interesting. But have you done a bit of research in that about how food can dictate mental clarity and focus? Because obviously everyone's different. Some people like to have carbs first thing in the morning and they're fine. But I've found with a lot of people having a high protein, high fat breakfast, they feel more alert, feel more awake. But have you done a bit of reading into that?
Yeah, so that is kind of my approach as far as like the breakfast goes. I think like my highest fat meal and protein meal is going to be breakfast. I definitely feel much better because there are some days where like I'm on the go, like tomorrow I've got to handle an athlete at a big powerlifting event. So my breakfast is not going to be what it typically is. And I know that I'm not going to be as alert and like ready for my day as I typically would be because I just don't have the resources to do that right now. But yeah, I think there is a direct correlation because you can tell by a person that takes their nutrition seriously versus one that does not. Like you've got like just the cloudy brain, you've got like the brain fog, you've got the irritability, you've got fatigue, all of these things with these people that like they're like, well, I wake up and I have a cup of coffee and I might grab like a protein bar and run out the
Yep.
door. I'm like, how are you alive? Like, I don't know. And then I'm like, I have this like giant plate of food and I'm like, this is happiness. Like,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, but yeah, no, there's a science behind that. I mean, on days that I don't eat my normal regimen, I don't feel myself. Training is affected, life is affected, decision making, like even just like sitting down to try to like program for an athlete. Like if I haven't eaten properly in that day, I'm just like, oh my God,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
and that's the last thing you want. You want to be able to give quality product. And so it's like
Yeah.
you quality
Yep.
products body. Like
Yeah. I'll definitely have to get you back on the podcast, Landry. I'd love to talk to you more about hormones and sleep, because sleep is obviously a huge one.
yeah.
That's a fascinating topic. But where can people find you, Landry? So, and if they want to book in for some program and, nutrition or some coaching, what do they need to do?
So you can find me on Instagram. That's kind of the main platform that I'm on. My handle is Landry Lifts a Lot. I also am on Facebook. I don't use that a whole lot. I do have a Facebook group if you want to join that for free. Got a lot of good members in the community on there. I put like free resources, things like that. And if you're interested in getting with me for coaching, you can send me a DM on Instagram. I also do have a website, landripeden.com, where you can fill out an intake form and we can get on a call to talk about coaching.
Amazing. And when's your next meet, Landry? When's your next powerlifting comp?
I am heading to Dublin, Ireland, August 2nd.
Wow, this will be good. Yeah, is this a very well known, prestigious event?
Yeah, so it's the ABS Pro. They do like a big pro circuit in Dublin, and they've started kind of branching into the US. But yeah, they're really exploding in the pro circuit, so I'm excited.
Amazing,
Yeah,
Landry. I'm excited to see how you go. I'll be
thank
following you through on Instagram for sure.
thank you.
Awesome, Landry. Thank you again for jumping on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.